All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Listen, y'all been sitting in traffic. Y'all should have a lot of energy. All right, before we get started, I would like for us to put on our servant hats. If you're in this room, you're in the field of serving a community. Okay, so whatever else that you have going on or any other biases, you are a servant and you are in customer service. Okay? So before I tell you anything about me, I wanted to get some feedback. The topic of this workshop is going to be empathy versus sympathy. And I think oftentimes we wrap up our sympathy in judgment. We say, oh, we feel sorry for this person. We feel sorry for this mother who may be working third shift and cannot come to a parent-teacher conference. But on the inside, we're asking the kid, why can't your mother come to the school? Okay? And so I have 3 or 4 different individuals. Okay? The first one grew up in a 3-bedroom home with 15 people. Parents were teenagers when the child was born, abused emotionally and physically, joined the gang. Number 2, honor roll, number 1 800-meter runner in the country. Number 3, left home at 18, was homeless, slept in a car, ate out of trash cans. Number 4, traveled the world, visited 20+ countries, award for international community service, enrolled in a PhD program. Now, who do you feel empathy for? Who do you feel sympathy for? Anybody? Which one? 1 through 4. You need me to repeat them? I can.
1.
Okay.
I feel empathy for all of them.
Empathy?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone feel sympathy? Who do you feel sympathy for?
For the ones that's stuck in the car. 3.
3. Anyone else?
I feel sympathy for the person in the PhD program because it's hard.
Okay. All right. Well, that's me. That was my life up until this point. Okay? I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey, in a 3-bedroom house in Miller Homes Projects with 15 people. My parents were teenagers. My mother was 16, my father was 18. I was abused emotionally and physically. To give you an example, if I wanted to go outside, my uncle would say, you gotta let me beat you. Okay. Number 2. Oh, excuse me, before I move off, number 1, I joined the gang. I was the most active. To be honest, I was sadistic because I could not beat up the people in my home, so I took it out on anyone who crossed my path. A dirty look, anything. I stole cars. I sold drugs. I did all of this between 13 and 14. Now some of you say, well, how can you balance? Number 2, I was good at what I do. And some will say, you're tooting your own horn, but I would not practice. My high school coach, Alfonso Jennings, would tell you, he's not coming to practice, but he'd be here for a meet. I would literally show up to a track meet, run, get on my bike, go back to the block to sell drugs. Okay? I don't know if any of you know Al Harrington, the Barber twin. Al Harrington went from high school to the NBA. The Barber twins were on the 4x4 Olympic team. I was up against them for New Jersey Athlete of the Year. I've been honored by the New Jersey Nets, walked down on the floor during halftime. I did not take my craft seriously. 3, I left home at 18. I went to Shaw University, which is a historically black university in Raleigh, North Carolina. My grandmother and mother put me on a train, 1 suitcase, Ziploc bag full of money. Had I not met Deborah, a lady on the train and her daughter Tiffany, who was going to the same school, I would have slept on the streets my first night in North Carolina. I had to drop out of school. And I had a friend who had a car and I slept in his car. When I couldn't eat, I would go to some of the restaurants and eat out of the trash cans. But I didn't stop going to school. I worked at UPS. I was a teacher's aide in an SH and NSH class. Okay? I did not give up. And it felt like no one felt sorry for me. Because if they did, I probably wouldn't be standing here in front of you. 4, travel the world. I recently returned back to America. I've been back for 2 years. I lived 5 years, and I always say Dubai, because if I say Abu Dhabi, a lot of people won't know. But Abu Dhabi is the richest city in the world. My youngest son was born there. I was an English professor at a university. I was a financial analyst for an oil firm. And I also started the first black mentor agency in the United Arab Emirates. I received an International Award for Community Service from Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And I'm enrolled in a PhD program. And I'm earning my PhD in educational psychology. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, and I have a master's degree in education with a focus on educational management. These are the students that are walking through your door every day. How are you servicing them? Are you feeling sorry for them? Are you feeling sorry for their parents? Or are you helping them? We have to remove our own implicit bias to be really effective. And oftentimes, that's the barrier. We go into communities, we offer these wonderful resources without even talking to anyone in the community. How do you know what they want? You just drove up one day, hey, I think they would benefit from an art program. But it's kids and they don't have shoes, or socks, or something to eat. I can't focus in class if I'm hungry. This is where we check our empathy versus sympathy. And I know some of you do feel sympathy. You might not want to say it. So today we'll be a little uncomfortable. But I challenge you to push past that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you up to date from when I landed in America, August of 2017, up until now. When I came back to America, the reason why I came back, my in-laws were elderly, and so I just scoop, and it's okay. It's okay. You can scoop. All right? But I watch the news every day from overseas. And if you know anything about international news, they do not censor anything. You will see the killing, you will see everything that's really going on because there is no buffer. They have no allegiance to America. So I kept seeing a spike in murders where I'm from, child poverty, lack of resources. I'm living the good life. I had a nanny, a driver. All my kids have been to 16 countries, Taj Mahal, great life. But I felt like I wasn't walking in my purpose. And I'm not going to lie, it was the sympathy that I got caught up in, because I thought money could fix everything. And that's what we often think. Hey, if I get this one grant or this one bond, it can help it all. Take a little sidestep. I was just sitting in a meeting, and I don't know if you guys heard about the killings that happened in Orinda, the 5 people. One of those young men that was murdered was one of my parents. So I sat in a meeting with all these community members, and they feeling sorry, and hey, if we just apply for this grant, and we have all of these services, they let this gentleman talk. Then it was my turn. I said, hey, how about something more immediate? How about we just walk down the hill and engage the community? How about you see a young brother, a young sister, and say, hey, I see you, breathe life into you. Do you know I was asked to sit down? But the guy who spoke about the money, oh, they gave him the floor. But the facilitator said, "Need you sit down." Then she said, "Well, what do you have planned?" As if I didn't come prepared. Right? I said, "Well, I'm hosting a parent-school alliance meeting for all of the community-based organizations with community members." Why? Because if your organization says you do family outreach, how do you do it? We'll call you on the floor. So I put everybody in one room. Then I said, we have a town meeting with the community. Then I followed up with, well, we actually have individualized, we have a speaker coming in who's hosted a workshop called From Trauma to Triumph. A parent who's raising a child and the family has experienced trauma. She couldn't say anything. But I turned and left. The SWAT team came down in Marin City and Golden Gate Village, went to specific homes, brought out a mother in handcuffs, a grandmother in handcuffs, two little babies, 4 and 5, who had pneumonia with nothing on, but their pull-up in their underwear. Threw them on the ground. Then they flash bombed another house. If you watch the news, I'm pretty sure you saw it. That same day, me and my assistant walked down that hill. Asked me, did you see any other community members? We did not. But we felt empathy. No, excuse me, we felt sympathy. They need more money. When what you could have done is made an immediate impact by showing up at the door. Okay? So, I just wanted to really frame what we're talking about here. How we can disguise how we feel when we go home. We all grown in here. I don't give a D about them people. It's 301. Oh, no, it's 5. Parents stop you coming in. But didn't you just say you felt empathy for this parent? You, to be honest, you go home and do nothing. Soap operas ain't on. The shows on CBS don't come on until about 7 or 8. So you literally brushing a parent off. But you made a commitment. You made a commitment to give back. And so when you're in those spaces, it ain't about you. My 2 youngest sons have autism. But when I go into that space, I know my sons are taken care of. But when I walk through Bayside MLK Elementary School, I'm Mr. Reynolds' community school manager. It's my job. It's my job. And I just found out, you ever read the back of a teaching certificate? Well, if there's a national emergency, who do you think are the folks that are on the front lines? It is the Army, the military, the police, then teachers. You have if you're in a teaching capacity, or you're in a building, a local education agency, a LEA, you have an obligation to be at that school if there's a natural disaster. See, this is where your empathy and your sympathy can clash. And so, again, I really wanted us, I want us to be in the mindset of checking ourselves. What does it look like when I help? What does it feel like? Right? So I landed here August 2017. My first job was at the youth shelter, ages 16 to 24, right next to the adult shelter. The name of the shelter was called the Cali House. The adult shelter was called the Brookside Shelter. Went in there, they didn't want to hire me. Said they couldn't afford it. So I worked for free. I met a young lady, 17 years old, on meth. Me being from New Jersey, didn't have any clue. I thought meth was always a middle America drug. Didn't know it was so prevalent out here amongst the young people. Then I had a young man who was on the run from MS-13 in Honduras. What they did for Jose, they kidnapped his girlfriend. And it's about to get a little gruesome. Because he left the gang, they kidnapped his girlfriend, and he was sending pictures of his body parts, of her body parts. This is going on at the shelter. He kept getting them and kept showing them to me. He then went in his room and tried to commit suicide. I still didn't leave. I had to stay there on the front line. I had a young lady who came into the shelter to, under the disguise of, I just need somewhere to stay, but she was recruiting for her pimp. I still didn't leave. I had pimps come up to the shelter looking for what they considered their property. Still didn't leave. And I didn't feel sorry. And the reason being was I felt like I had to empower them. It wasn't my job to save them. And I want us to get out of that notion that we're in the saving business. None of us in here, if you believe in God, you're not him or her. You meet people where they are. Don't let your pity make you think you know it all, because you don't. Or you couldn't handle that situation. Okay? So, sitting there, everyone that I brought into the room, I would ask them, where did your problem start? Age 12, I was molested by my uncle. I started drugs when I was younger. My mom put me out. I didn't know what to do. What do you say to them? How do you tell a 16-year-old whose mom is on drugs, he can't understand why she doesn't love them? How would you put that in words? That's where we're at. Because communication is a skill. How many of us have brought people into our office and we spouting off all these terms and these acronyms and all this money, and you go down here, wow, I helped them today. Person walks out, I don't know what the hell she just said. Now, a person not coming back. Do we ever seize the opportunity to really connect to the people that we serve? Or do we stay within the confines of our organization? Because it's a lot, it's easy to sit in your office. It's easy to work with your door open. It's easy to say, I have a meeting right now, when you really don't. We go to all these conferences. And we sit in family engagement, and we have all these wonderful ideas, but how many of us are really executing them with the empathy lens on and with the serving lens on? Right? So, at the shelter, couldn't figure out, I was racking my brain, knew money couldn't solve it all, so I said, let me go to the middle school to get ahead of the bull. Because these kids had to go to school somewhere, because we take kids starting at 16. So they had some primary, secondary educational interaction. But then when I got to middle school, of course we know we all, the young men and women hormones are out of this world, right? So I get to the middle school. All these organizations are there. They're like, hey, this is what we do. You know, if any of you know what the LCAP is, right? I mean, you know what the LCAP is, right? You know, on the LCAP, they list the organizations and the services they provide. There was 16 organizations listed on the LCAP. But when I went there, as a community manager, I started investigating. We're paying 16 people, but only 7 organizations are on this campus. When I asked for metrics, how do you measure student success? In your prospective organization, how do you measure the success? Do you say, well, we fed 200 people? That is fantastic. But in what other ways did you serve them? And every person I went to, you know, we really love these kids and we do all these wonderful, we take them trips, we take them to see the Nutcracker, right? We take them to the mountains to go snow tubing, all these other wonderful things. But when I ask you, can I see your data? Nothing. Nothing at all. But you're getting about $100 grand a year to serve these kids. You know, we just feel so sorry for these kids. You know, we just, you know, we know where they live. How many of you visited their neighborhoods? How many have actually been in their homes? How many times has their parent called you and you sit there called to voice? Or they called the school asking for you and you told the school secretary, just take a message, but you never got back to them. But you empathize with them. Okay? So, I went in and I removed, out of all those organizations, 12. It was 60 days. Get out of here. And I started the social emotional programs there. It wasn't even a part of my job. My job, I'm the invisible hand. I manage all of the community-based organizations. That's my job. I go out and find resources, but because you know anything about Richmond, California, if you know anything about 23rd Street, McDonald, the St. John's, the Barretts, Harchester, you know it's a rough place. And we're paying people who don't even show up to these kids. And we're making our LCAP look lovely. It's so pretty. When you present it to the state, look at everything that we're doing. The state is so big, they don't ask questions, they just accept it. Oh, wow, you did what? Oh, that is nothing. Right? So removing those organizations, started putting in things myself. But what I could not do was heal or step in the space of, I know what you need. So I had to meet with parents. I didn't say a word. This is your chance. This is your opportunity to build a school that you want. No, I don't feel sorry for you. I don't, I can't. Because do you know how strong you have to be? Even if you're addicted to a drug, to wake up every morning and get your kids to school. See, most people don't see strength in that, right? You just think, oh, they in drugs, they smoke and they drink, but the kids come to school every day. Clothes washed, everything. They're fighting their own addiction to still make sure the child has a better life. But like I told someone yesterday, there's the child, but someone is standing behind them. Are you servicing the person behind the child? And that's what I mean, empathy versus sympathy. Because we always talk about, how many of you attend cost meetings? Coordination of services team, they call them care teams. Basically, it's a group of individuals at the school. It's the principal, the school psychologist, some teachers, the school secretary, and you have a student that presents to you, right? So you sit with a team, you come up with the best strategies to serve the student as long as they're in school. As long as they're in school, we got a game plan. We want to put interventions in place, and we're gonna do these things, and it's 3:02. So that means my intervention plan is done. Then on top of that, they don't even mention the parent. What role does the parent play in raising their child? Most people in the room don't even have kids, let alone have all these environmental factors affecting them every day. I had one lady say, well, we should just get them, we should put lavender in the room and put the mask on their eyes, and we tell them to take some deep breaths. And who are you talking to? You not. These kids live in a war zone. How about teaching them some self-regulation? Before I act, let me check myself. How about bringing the mom and have her sitting on the cost team, and she can tell you what she does at home, and maybe we can implement it at the school. No, you want peace corners. What's that, Himalayan salt lance? Is that what it's called? Because it keeps you shopping, right? But I'm hungry. I can't sit still. I just watched my father get murdered. We're not giving it. Everything that I'm telling you has happened. This is not me just making something up. I'm speaking from being in the trenches in the field. I had a young man refer to the cost team. He just won't sit still. He's severely chronic absent. We all know what that means. You can go before the SAR. SAR don't work. Stand in front of a judge. In West Contra Costa, if you're in high school, you miss a lot of days, they put an ankle monitor on. Between us, Richmond PD can't even afford nobody to watch it. So it's psychological. It's like the elephant who's chained for so many years, he keeps rocking. You remove the chain. But psychologically, he's trained not to move out of that space that he's been permitted to operate in. Right? So I want to meet with his mom, and I need you to get with her. And met with his mom yesterday. She said, Mr. Reynolds, I know I have my own stuff going on. She said, but I watched my daughter's father get murdered in front of me. That did not come up in the cost meeting. But you've been portraying this parent as a bad parent because she can't get up. Because she feels like she's only safe when her head is under those covers. She cannot be effective. What we say talking about servicing a child. You can service a child all day. But guess what happens when they return back to school? You gotta reprogram them. You didn't give them any tools to survive outside of their classroom, their playground, or anything else. But you're here because you care. Oh, we love them so much. Oh. And everyone in the room keep placing the blame on the child. How do you blame a 9-year-old? Well, they know better. What if they don't? Communication is a skill that needs to be developed. So when you have people in spaces and you're talking to them and they get mad and they waving their hands, that just might be how they communicate. As a black man, being from Trenton, New Jersey, this is what we do. Yup, yeah. I'm not mad. I had to tell someone, don't confuse my passion with anger. Because you're missing the message. You're listening to the octaves that I'm using, the hand waving. And so, I'm trying to reprogram this 9-year-old child and everything else. And when I asked him, when I said, did you know his father got murdered? Huh? Oh, you didn't? Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, wow. But meantime, you just wrote a CPS report. CPS knocking on the door. In communities of color, when we hear that knock, But we see that school light up on the phone, we got problems. We will be forever adversarial if it is not rectified, especially from a misunderstanding. Now the relationship is severed. But we feel sorry, or we empathize, but your action says otherwise. Okay. So, again, sorry for jumping off, but like I said, I want to give you the examples, some real examples that I know some of you know someone who maybe went through it, but really real-time thing. All this stuff just happened yesterday for me. Okay. So, middle school, got a young lady named Raja, mad at the world. She come to school with a brick in her book bag because she got in a fight the day before. She ready to tear this girl head off. But what people don't know is that Raja is being groomed to be a prostitute. 7th grader. Think anybody asked him? Nah. Listen, Jahmeer, you don't want to listen. Try to tell the principal. Right? Or the young men at school feel like the only way that they can communicate when they're mad is to fight. And if they drop a tear, their peers consider that weakness. Ah, man, you soft, what you crying for? We deal with toxic masculinity. I know. Because as a child, as a 12-year-old, my uncle put an AK-47 in my hand and said, how do you feel? I said, I feel like God. Who's going to stop me? Can't. He kept it in a black and pink gym bag. When we walked down to our cellar, it's a little slot. That's where all the guns were kept. So we at this middle school and they want to fight and they want to get mad. I said, I jumped in front of them. I said, I love you enough not to let you hurt yourself or hurt anyone else. It's the first time I ever heard someone say he loved me. And especially from a man that don't even know him. See, I didn't feel sorry for him. I knew that underneath all of that anger, there was some strength. So I replaced the empathy with empowerment. And that's what we need to do. We are in a serving business, and empowering is our product. That's what we should be selling. Okay? There's no need to feel sorry for people who have made it up until meeting you. Because unless you've been at your job 10 or 15 plus years, this parent's still been rocking and rolling. And I'm not just talking about mothers, I'm talking about fathers too. And that's another thing we need to do. Stop assuming that their father's not in the house. Respect that family enough to give them the benefit of the doubt. Or we have these young fathers who really don't know how to be fathers. Who's talking to them? How many of us really feel sorry for the men that come in? And be honest. Do we feel sorry for the men? Or do we think it's a great thing when a father shows up at a conference? I'm young. My dad wasn't there. I don't know how to be a dad. You show me a rule book on being a parent. I got 5. My oldest is 18, my youngest is 5. Nobody is alike. And I got a set of twins, a boy and a girl. Nobody is alike. My 5-year-old is the leader. And he knows it. But how many of us feel sorry for the men or feel like we should be empowering the men? Do you know how good that feels for if a man comes to you for help? First of all, that's a tough thing for a man to do. Why? Because we've been groomed to be the protectors, the hunters, the providers. But they get tired too. Their feelings get hurt. It might display itself differently, but does anyone ever feel for the man? And so, middle school, bring the young man in, Never had anyone talk to him in that type of way. But everyone I met, I said, well, tell me what happened. And it's crazy that these middle schoolers remember elementary school like it was yesterday. I'm talking about 7th, 8th graders. They talking about when they was in 2nd grade and I'm beefing with this. You were in 2nd grade, first of all. Okay? I need you to scale it down, okay? And then they talk about things that they experienced. This leads me to my elementary school. And so I want to ask you all a question. If you walk into a building, let's say you get a job. This school is horrible. Everything that you could think of went wrong. You have 3 options. Feel sorry and go in. Don't go in at all. Or 3, I wonder how much potential is in that building. How many of us have ever walked into a situation and it's like, there is no hope here? Your initial reaction. I ain't talking about when you meet the ED and y'all sit down and I'm talking about when you walk in and you look to your left and to your right. Claudia, I see you shaking your head. Yeah. Right? You're just like, we give you the scenario. 7 principals in 1 year. Case 6, 256 suspensions in 1 year. 0 proficiency in math and reading for African American students. And racial tension is so thick you can cut it with a knife. Would you still go into the building? And I'm gonna give y'all some time to think about it. And I want you to be honest. How many of you would still? How many of you would say, sorry, let me go save them? And I'm gonna say this. It's not just the white savior. African Americans do it, my Latino brothers and sisters do it, my Asian brothers and sisters do it as well. So we're not just gonna limit it to one group of people. How many of you will go in that building? Remember, the first option is you feel sorry when you go in. Yeah, somebody in here who running through their mind like, man, I feel so bad, I feel so sorry. But you don't want to raise your hand, it's okay. How many of you would not take the job? Thank you, Patricia. Being honest. Is Patricia going to be the only one saying, nah, I'm going to go back to Indeed.com and figure this out? This is not my thing. Listen, I did not sign up to go in here and anyone else? How many of you will look at it as there's so much potential in that building? I chose number 3. Had to. Why? Because that was the feeder school to my middle school. Mm-hmm. You see what you can walk away from? You literally can change someone's life by just going right down the street and sliding right into that slot. I didn't even interview for the job. Not because I'm just this fantastic guy, but I was at the feeder school and I had already arranged some stuff. The school district came to me and said, look, this is when you start. I was working for BACR, Bay Area Community Resources. I was a contractor. Right? Went down to school, went in a building, looked around, 410 students. Only 77 of them were African American. But they accounted for 46% of the 256 suspensions in 1 year. There were no affinity groups. There was not a African American parent group, nothing. kids running wild. Black parents didn't even want to come into the school. Because every time they would come in, they would, no. Because they said every time I come in here, people look like I'm dirt. Because I live in a St. John's with the Barretts. But I come here every day, Mr. Jahmeer. I know I got on pajama pants and a scarf, right? But I just got up from third shift, but I'm here. See, we so busy, we get caught up on outer appearance, just like the young man who pants sag. Pull your pants up, boy. What you doing? Everything else. If anyone knows Jean-Michel Basquiat, he looked like a vagabond. But he was one of the most brilliant artists in the world. If you know any artists, they don't dress nice. Right? They got paint splatters. Look, they always have a scarf on, don't they? Right? They always got that little scarf, and, right? And a vest. It's always the scarf and the vest, right? Right? We get so caught up in appearance, Black parents didn't want to come into the school. Give you an example of being at the elementary school.
Wait, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you talking about Marin City right now or Richmond?
Richmond.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm getting to Marin City.
Okay. I need to place myself.
Oh, no
Thank
problem.
you.
I'm, like I said, I'm bringing you from 2017 to today.
Okay, thank you.
So, I had a staff member, a Latino family, an African-American family, got into it. Show up at the house, everything. Both families worked it out. Went to another staff member, right? And the Latino parent said, my family was the aggressor. But guess who the attention was directed to? The mother and the son showed up to talk to the parent at the home. They worked it out. We walking with solidarity. We got one of our community coordinators with it. We worked it out. We smiled and we laughed, and we will talk to a staff member. Latino mother says, I apologize. I was trying to, it was just a lot of yelling back and forth. But we worked it out. We do. Staff member looks at the African American parent and says, I need you to look at me and tell me you understand. Now, this Black parent, if you know anything about Richmond, you know the Bernsteins. Wherever you're from, it's always that one family with a lot of people. And she was a Bernstein. And she turned to look, I said, please leave this, please. Just go, because you're about to tear this whole office up. Just go, I got it. I was offended, appalled. Then the staff member turns around and says, I hope she doesn't come blow up my house. I'm a Black man. You just said this to a Black woman, about a Black woman, who wasn't at fault. Oh, but you did a help. See, that's what we mean about implicit bias. Oh, it comes out at the craziest times. Oh, we'll march when everything's going right. Oh, but let somebody piss you off and they're from another race. All that empathy and sympathy go out the door, and the real you show up. Like Martin Luther King said, it's not, the test of a man is not during times of peace, but in war. Oh, we got some implicit bias. Because we get real comfortable when we're around our friends. And staff members we know who can keep a secret. Oh yeah, we'll talk about little such and such and this, that, and the third. And it's not just reduced to African American children, reduced to Middle Eastern children, right? And when I say Asian, I don't just mean from China, Taiwan, I mean India, Sri Lankan, They are not the same. Please, when both countries are messed up and said, ain't nothing, like, no. Okay? So that's what I mean, where empathy versus sympathy. You can't operate in that space when it's convenient. My implicit bias is, what can I do to help you take your blinders off? Because everybody has, I believe everyone has room for improvement. I'm guilty of that, of believing in people. Even when you say you come in and you don't show up and you don't call, I don't go to a negative space and be like, well, they just didn't want to come. No, I'm like, and some people like, Jahmeer, you just can't trust people, but why not? But the reason why some people don't trust is, if I tell you something about me, I don't want you to use it against me. All right? So I have an activity. Okay? So I want you to pair up. All right, Claudius, you raise your hand. And Patricia, y'all two, the only two raise your hands, so I appreciate you. Thank you so much. The rest of y'all, I need y'all to raise your hand and talk. All right? Let me pull up. I have an exercise. All right. So the exercise is, I want you to form small groups. All right. Where did you grow up? What other cultural groups and identities and practice did you encounter? Ethnic, race, class, sexual orientation, religious. What messages were you given about people who were different? From family, from peers, from the media, and others. How has your background experiences influenced your perception of other cultures that you encountered in your outreach work? So I'm going to give you guys about 20 minutes. And I really want you to if you don't feel comfortable sharing, then please don't. If you don't feel like this is the space to do this, then I understand. But we're here to push the boundaries. We're here to be better servants. Even if you don't share what's on your card, I want you to keep it. And when you get home at night, I want you to read over it. And if it's something that you feel strongly about, still examine it. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but look at other sides to it. Okay? Are y'all ready? Mm-hmm. Come on. Look, first of all, all right. All right, the clock starts now. All right.
Growing up as hard.
All right. I didn't know this was for me. Told me it was. All right. So, before we begin, just wanted to show you a few things. This is my family. Yes, they are really sitting on a crocodile. It is a village in northern Ghana called Paga. The inhabitants of the village live with the crocodiles. They believe that the crocodiles are their ancestors. So this particular crocodile was actually called from the river. Our guide stood on the banks of the river and called up a particular crocodile, baiting it with a chicken. And as you can see, there's no chains, there's nothing, okay? This is me for my birthday. Yes, that is a real shark. Yes, I paid to swim with sharks. It was tiger sharks, sandbar sharks, and Galapagos sharks. And also saw a blue whale off the northern coast of Hawaii. And this is me and my son, the pyramids. Believe it or not, they're actually in the middle of the city. The Sphinx is really little. This is me at a wedding in the UAE. I don't know if you're familiar with the royal family of, well, the Al Nahyans, which is the ruling family of Abu Dhabi. Well, actually the founder. Sheikh Zayed is the founder. They call him the father of the nation. This is me at a wedding. I was actually invited. I was the only black man there. because I saw a brother who looked just like me. And I'm like, cousin. He was like, "Oh." And this is me in South Africa with real Zulu warriors. Where I am at is where they actually shot the movie Shaka Zulu. I do believe like Shaka Zulu was like my 8th grandfather, I'm telling you. But during the slave trade, slaves did not come from South Africa. I know that. This is me volunteering at an orphanage in Indonesia. Into Bali, I went there for my birthday, but I wanted to volunteer. And if you know anything about Bali, orphanages are illegal. So it was an Australian woman who actually came into the city, who set up this house. They don't receive any assistance from the government. All the assistance that they need are like from outside individuals. So we took this gentleman, we were arguing about who's the best football player, soccer. To the local grocery store, bought rice and everything else, and we just stayed there and really kicked it well. So yeah, this is just a little brief glimpse of my travels. All right, so we have a few minutes left, so I'm gonna get right to it. Right now, in 2019, I serve on a desegregation task force in Sausalito Marin City School District. Yes, I said desegregation. The schools that have been mentioned, this article has been in the New York Times, the San Francisco Chronicle, all other papers around the world. The gist of the story is, does anyone know the history behind Marin City? All right. So Marin City was created during World War II, and they had the shipyards. And if you know anything about during World War II, there was a great migration of African Americans from the Deep South coming out to the West. The shipbuilders created this city for the workers, but they could not buy land. It was redlining all over the place. Okay? So what happened was when the shipyard closed down, the community stayed. And this community has been ostracized left and right. If you know where Marin City is, it's a big circle, and you get on the highway. Yep. But it's also a training ground for the sheriff's department. So let's just be clear. You have a new sheriff coming in, accosting individuals. No training, nothing. You're going to get on the job training. Okay? Now, the school Bayside had a history of academic excellence. But then they created a charter school. And they took all of the resources from the academic excellent school and sent them to the charter school. It took 7 years to get this judgment from the California DA's office. And it was raised by a parent. School attendance dropped, behaviors went up. Parents, it's not right. We know, like, I have nothing against charter schools, but you don't take from one and give to another. They literally stripped this school down. When the California State Attorney General gave that speech, I was standing right there. I got hired in June. I did not know this was going on. I come to school one day. He's standing on the campus. What? They just hired a new superintendent who was from Marin City, went to Tam High, went to Cal, right? He's native. And they passed this judgment. So now we're trying to figure out, how do we get the services back? Math scores have dropped. ELA scores have dropped. But you had organizations on campus saying they provide a service. Whenever I met with any of them, you know what I always say, what's your metrics? Are you only measuring academics? Or do you compare the attendance with school and in your program? You say you do family engagement, how do you do it? No one could show me anything. So, as a community school manager, I created the evaluation guide. And I told them what you're going to give me to prove you're being successful. And if you cannot prove it, thank you for your services. We'll talk to you later. Because we have a judgment. We have articles that are supposed to be in place by February 2020. They didn't have a parent. They don't have a PTA. LCAP was shaky. Right? And everyone's duplicating services. How many of you see that a lot? Everybody doing the same thing, working in silos. And no one can produce data to prove what you're doing. So my job now, along with the superintendent and other community members, we have to rectify the situation. Bayside MLK has gotten such a bad rap. I don't want to send my kids there, and these are from community members. They don't know what they're doing up there. They had, just like my previous school, 6 principals in 1 year. People come there, yeah, 1 year. They come there, you know, nothing against TFA if you join it, but we know that TFA don't really train you to come into these neighborhoods. And I asked someone, do you guys do any cultural competency, social emotional training? Yeah, we do. This was an administrator, not at Bayside. I went to a teacher, he said, Mr. Jahmeer, we spent 30 minutes on it. So how are you servicing the kids? Right. So teachers come there, be a training ground, they leave, they can't take it. One thing about Marin City, they stick together. And if you're honest with them, they'll take care of you and they'll show up to everything. So since I've been there, had to put a few things in place. Got a couple of questions. Why are you here? I walk down the hall, you know they're going to try to fire you if you do too good. You don't need to be here. Why are you here? You're not from here. You need to leave. I've only been there since August. I mean, this August, not from a year ago. Right? It's crazy, right? But I didn't feel sorry for them. And I turned my empathy into empowerment. Created a parent resource center that has a clothing bank. Created a young entrepreneur program for our 7th and 8th graders. We got our first local business to agree to take our 7th and 8th graders and show them how the business work and hire local people. So already we pouring into the economy. So even with this desegregation act, things are still getting done, but it's still segregated. This is 2019. It's been 50 years since those words have been uttered in the state of California. School is K-8, only 120-something students. Think about that. 120 students, TK to 8. Now, some of us say, well, that population is too small. That's a great number to build your foundation with. Smaller class sizes. They have resources. If you know anything about Sausalito, you know it's a lot of money there. And individuals who want to pour into, I don't know if it's their guilt or whatever, but I'll take it. Right? Let's just be real. A lot of people donate to a cause because they're trying to satisfy something that they're feeling or some type of guilt. If your heart is in the right place, I'm all for it, but I'm a realist. And so we do have a lot of people who come through and make these promises and do one-offs. I'd rather take small amounts that are committed than one big amount that's only doing it for self-satisfaction. Because I'm committed to the process. And so, as we stand right here, February 2020 is our deadline to have so many articles in place, as I said before, and we're on track to do it. We do have an LCAP. We have started a parent program. We are offering mentoring to parents. I met with the DA yesterday. and across from him was the public defender. I said, do you guys, when guys leave jail, do you hook them up with a sponsor or someone out there? DA looked at me and said, nah, that ain't really my job. Public defender said, oh, I mean, we got somebody that go around and, do it. But he said, look, that's a great idea. See, that's what I mean. Are you committed to the process? You the public defender, we all know public defenders, they just argue to get the least amount of time as possible. They don't really argue for your freedom, to be honest. But what am I going to do when I come out? And these are the parents of the children that we have. That murder that happened in Orinda, like I told you, all those murders, about those families. And just so you know, you guys saw the raids, right, and the SWAT and everything else. Do you know they released all 5 of those young men? Couldn't charge them with anything. But they went into homes and kicked over desks and handcuffed mothers and brought children out of the house, flash bombs and tear gas and everything else. A couple of days later, let everyone go. What is this community left with? But the community is so resilient, we meet the next day. This is what I mean by not allowing sympathy to take over the empathy, and the empathy turns into empowerment. Because it's easy to sit and say, man, I just give up. It's the sheriff training ground. They're going to lock us up anyway. They ain't coming to help us. But they refuse to let it go because they know that during World War II, we weren't even supposed to be here. We persevered through that. So you think I'm going to let this break me? Nah, we're not going anywhere. And so that is my current fight. I really want to thank you for having me. And well wishes and best of luck to you all. Questions? Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I hear you talk a lot about metrics, and that really interests me. Like, how are you measuring the effectiveness of your programs? That's something we as a PTA struggle with a lot. Like, what is meaningful family engagement? And so we have some criteria around welcoming, communicating, empowering, those sorts of things. But I'm really interested in these metrics that you find demonstrate effective parent engagement.
So we have 4 components that we examine: academics, attendance, behavior, family engagement. And I'll speak to family engagement. How often do you offer workshops? Do you do pre and post surveys, or are you just coming in? How often do you host family events? What is your attendance? What is your marketing outreach? Are you going from door to door? You're just sending out an email. You see? Because all those things you can put a number to. And we can identify where we're good at and where we need work at. And when I look at academics, if my child is enrolled in your program and they're here, this is your program. It should be like this. One should not outweigh the other. Because I enrolled them in your program to raise the bar. Attendance, right? We know that if a student missed between 10 and 12 days, what that could result into. Are you calling home? Your community-based organization. That's what you said you would do. Is the school communicating? And I look at the attendance, they're here every day, but they don't go to your program. Why don't they want to go to your program? Behavior, we use something called SWIS. How many of you are familiar with SWIS? SWIS is called School-Wide Information Systems. It's like Apricot. So what SWIS does, let's say a student he has a rough day every day, 10:15, in the hallway with the same person. SWIS can track that if they receive a referral, and every day at 10:15, we can put a support in place because you're able to identify it. From location, times of day, days of the week. We know around the holidays, that's when people are affected the most. We can add more functions to try to curb the seasonal depression. or a child knows they're not getting anything for Christmas, but we could step in and help the family. To be completely honest, I had a staff member come to me because of the power outages. She has no food for Thanksgiving. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. You understand? Because I know around the holidays it gets rough. And the power outages made everything a lot worse. So I'm able to log that and say, hey, we need to have this backup just in case. Right?